Actually here now, and he's the co-author of On Mission, co-written with another veteran, John Buford. Required reading, in my opinion. I have a copy right here, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, especially for all you servant leaders out there. And Sean, of course, himself is a servant leader. Sean, I want to thank you again for joining us, and I guess we'll get started. Would you mind giving our listeners a little bit of your origin story? How did joining the service come about? What was the circumstances and decisions that led to that?
Appreciate it, Rob. Thank you for the invitation. Great to be here. Yeah, I love hearing sort of the origin stories from veterans. They're always unique and they come from so many different places. I'll keep it short, but grew up in small town Midwest, and at some point early on, I was intrigued by this concept that I barely understood, but this concept of leadership. And I certainly wasn't a leader. I was just a kid growing up in a tiny little town, but uh, I knew it involved a test. I knew it involved education and training and experience. And somehow I knew that you had to go through a fire or through experience in order to really get there. So, again, small town. I mean, we had, I think there were 1,200 in our little town where I went to most of my grade school, junior high, and high school. Uh, so if you could chew gum and walk at the same time, what I noticed is that you could play 3 sports year round. You could be involved in student government and be on I mean, you could just do all the things.
Yeah.
And so I did all the things, and not probably none of them well, but it was sort of uh, it was kind of the beginning of figuring out, okay, who am I? What am I good at? What am I terrible at? What are our strengths and weaknesses? And I remember, I think sophomore in high school, and I was applying myself pretty aggressively to in all the ways in school. And my mother asked me if I was interested in college, and I said, well, absolutely. And she said, well, we don't have any money for that. And I said, yes, ma'am. I said, that's why I'm working so hard. She said, there are these things. There's this place called West Point, and there's this place called Annapolis. And so it was very interesting. That was some leadership, but also born of the fact that there were no funds for. So so we started sort of, she gathered some information, and I rode off and got the information book for Annapolis and the Naval Academy and for West Point. And there was something about it, Annapolis, that really just intrigued me, and the rigor and all of those kinds of things, and just sort of imagining myself maybe in that kind of a place and environment. So basically, the beginning, probably mid freshman, sophomore year in high school, man, I was on a tear, and I learned everything I could about the Naval Academy, and I love the idea of having some choices. First of all, it looked beautiful. Everybody was smiling in the pictures.
Right.
Annapolis, Maryland is a beautiful place, and it was just so different from my experience. So, in any event, managed over the course of time to get the congressional nomination and get admitted to the Naval Academy from this little town. So that began my sort of formal military uh, journey, if you will. And then, at Annapolis, you then have all of these options during those 4 years, and one of the biggest option most important option you have is select Navy or select Marine Corps. And uh, I, there was something about the Marines, and it was really around leadership that just absolutely drew me. So uh, upon graduation, I was able to obtain a commission in the Marine Corps as a second lieutenant.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's
Yeah.
excellent. A town with no traffic light that produces an
Not
incredible
one.
leader. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Well, I'm not sure about incredible leader, but to this day, not a stoplight. It's really interesting. It's maintained its small town feel. There are stop signs, I must tell you,
Yeah,
but
that's wonderful. I love that. So okay, so now you're in the Marine Corps, right? Still learning, and you have leaders around you, and eventually
yeah,
you become a leader. How did that? Well, you were a leader from the gate, of course, but you're learning from seniors. How did that evolve? Some of the travels, some of the lessons learned. How did
sure,
that come about?
absolutely. Day one, the basic school, Quantico, Virginia. Uh, as we're running around trying to figure out where our beds, our racks are, and who our roommates are, and what's going on. There was this constant drum beat of a phrase uh, that was pretty clear. It's become sort of a famous phrase, but leaders eat last. Leaders eat last. Leaders eat last. Take care of your Marines first. Leaders eat last. Take care of your Marines first. And it was just, over the course of those 6 months, if there was anything that they instilled in us, it was that perspective, and that's servant leadership. They didn't call it servant leadership. It was just leadership. To lead means that you are embracing, you're taking on a sacred responsibility to serve your Marines in the direction of the team's mission. Right? Marine Corps, simple, not easy, uh, but simple, and it just and I started to see how things kind of lined up, and it it gave me an insight into what leadership really is about. And it also gave me an insight into and helped me to understand when I was acting out of alignment with that perspective, or when I was clearly in alignment. And it began to, and what I saw around me in the senior leaders and the successful staff NCOs and even non-commissioned officers. I mean, I saw this organization clearly mission focused. I mean, everything they did and said, a clear mission focus, but the relationships were strong and they were built on that perspective. And I also saw what happened when you did sort of when you lost that perspective and when it became instead about the classic cases, right? Of, okay, I'm in charge here and I know all and just follow my orders, and if I want your opinion, I'll
I'll write
squeeze
it
it
down
out
for you.
for you. But yeah, exactly. I'll tell you what, and there's a time and place for right leadership from the front, follow me, time and place. But I saw the way teams gelled, unlike anything I'd seen in high school football or, in my past. But I saw this is the core of it. And I also saw along the course of my time in the Marine Corps, uh, this really intense and deeply held and not fluffy and silly, this sense of love, this sense of care that leaders had and developed for their teammates. And it was, there were many incidents and I was on active duty for 13 years. So I had an opportunity to see that play out in many ways. And it seemed to be kind of that magic element when you combine the mission focus with the service orientation, and when it becomes real, authentic, that requires both humility and love. And so I was just pleased, not pleased, but I was always just being a student of, okay, what's real, what's authentic about this leading thing. And so that was the heart of it. And I think that's one of the greatest learnings over my time in the Marine Corps that I sorted out.
Yeah, yeah, the authenticity is you can prime it all you want. You can give the sharpest uniform, but you have to be
Absolutely.
willing to be in that uniform to really carry it forward. It's yeah,
Right.
it's a rare find, and luckily the military were very rich in authenticity.
Yeah, yeah, yes, exactly, right. Feedback is continuous. You might not always like what you hear, but that's because, we live at the best. The stakes are high, and reality matters. Performance matters. Merit matters, and relationships matter.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's you live in this very real world. Communication, clarity on mission, role clarity, preparation, training is continuous. I mean, it was that, stuff mattered. So, wasn't it made it very real. And I think a great school to then test, and this is, we'll get into it later, but as the journey continued and I left the Marine Corps, then the question was, well, is that really what leadership is about out here in the real world, right? As we used to
Yeah,
call it, the civilian world.
yeah, it's fantastic. So so you did 13 years active duty,
Yeah,
and then where was kind of the indication, okay, now there's going to be a bit of a change. How did that come about?
absolutely.
And how did that go for you? Because we all have a unique experience with that transition.
Oh, absolutely. No, it's a great question. And we all look back on our career decisions, right? I had so the Marine Corps had sent me to law school after my first tour of duty at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Got picked up for the law program, went to the University of Illinois, then Naval Justice School, then out to Camp Pendleton, California, as a JAG, prosecution, criminal defense. Got to do all of the things. Uh, Sort of find your feet in a courtroom in a the court martial realm, and figure out what kind of a lawyer you were, and then got picked up for another law degree. Went to the Army JAG School at the University of Virginia for what they call an LL.M, Master of Laws, Operational Law, Law of War. Back to Southern California. Got to do a deployment with a Marine Expeditionary Unit, Okinawa, Hong Kong, uh, Western Australia, Singapore.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing tour
Frequent
of
flyer miles all over the place. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. But how exciting to be, on the staff and operational law with a three-ship task force and 2,000 Marines and sailors in the Western Pacific, and aircraft and Navy SEALs and Marine, recon and infantry, and just what a great experience. Came back, finished up my time, and then there was the decision, right? I'm a major, and this is now 1996. First Gulf War was done.
Sure.
Nobody knew 9/11 was around the corner, and I was headed to the Pentagon, and I just thought, it's been 17 years total for at Annapolis 13, and I think I just thought, well, maybe it's time to get off the merry-go-round and see if I can handle the civilian world. But who we are, sort of how we define ourselves And this is the transition story, right? For every, I don't care whether you're, I mean, I care, but it, every military member has to transition at some point into this, what we call the civilian world, right? You, it's such a different, the mission is different and the culture is different. And you have to then figure out every single it doesn't matter if you've been to combat, haven't been to combat, you're in a support MOS or you're flying jets or whatever it is. You've got to figure out, who am I now? Who am I outside of uniform? Who am I without rank? Who am I when nobody cares about your resume? They they want to know who you are and what you're going to bring to the table and what it's like to work with you. And so the question is, the who am I now question is just central to all of us. And it's I think when you leave, you're finally sort of aware of this whole sort of supporting, right? Structure and relationships and organization you had around you and how you defined yourself. And it's really, it's, that is a key point. That is where the road forks for every military veteran, because it's not a natural, it's really a pretty jarring kind of an experience. I
Yeah.
don't know if you found that to be the case. I'm
Oh,
sure you.
100%. You're in this engine, this well-tuned engine where everybody knows their roles and their parts.
Right.
Maybe you're on a, now all of a sudden, just like that, you're in a dinghy by yourself out to out to sea.
Absolutely. Yeah. To use a naval,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, there you go. You got to
you did
find
that
your
well.
dock. You got to
Yeah.
find you got to find
Right.
everything you got to do going forward on your own.
So then you fall back on these things, and it's funny you mentioned I'm in a dinghy, sort of floating. So, one of the things that we learned at the Naval Academy were all these famous naval sayings. So it's sort of my what I would think is one that comes to mind. Of course, everything was attributed to John Paul Jones. I doubt that he said any of those things, but or wrote any of those things, but. Uh, give me a fast boat, for I intend to sail into harm's way. As you know, what is the rest of the journey going to be like? And what I began to find and to test. So first, I ended up in a civilian law firm because that's kind of the skill set I thought I had, was to be a trial lawyer. And so for about 3 years, tried cases in the civilian world. And but but it's funny how we defined ourselves and our strengths and perhaps roles in the military. You then begin to sort of test that in the civilian world. And I did define myself in, not as the best leader, maybe sometimes not, but being a leader was a responsibility I had taken on in the military, like many of us. And can I lead in the civilian world? And what does that mean? So when I all I could do was test what I knew. What I knew was that it had to do with, again, going back to day one at the basic school in Quantico, sacred responsibility to serve my teammates in the direction of a shared mission. Uh, and that's how I applied myself. Because I missed it, being on a team so desperately, I was fortunate enough to interview and be selected for this publicly traded corporation, which was looking for their first in-house counsel. And so I remember my interview. I said, I know nothing about the products you sell. I know nothing, I know very little, just some legal concepts about a publicly traded corporation. There's much I do not know about what you do, but I do know something about who I am. I know something about building a team, and I have some fairly strong convictions about what it means to lead. So if you are looking for those things, then I think I am your person. If you're looking for the subject matter expert, by the way, I think I'm coachable and I can learn, but if you're looking for that person, then I'm not your guy. So I was fortunate that they were in fact looking to, build a team and shape a culture and build this organization. And so 22 years there in corporate America.
Yeah, that's great.
And and again, all I could do was to fall back on that perspective. Authentic leadership. I'm going to lead my team, small unit leadership, right? Going to start off, I'm not going to try to transform the organization, and it's me leading my team consistently. It's me in every interaction, every meeting, every problem solving session, every strategic session. It's all about, okay, are we clear on mission? Who are your people? Who can bring what to the table? How can I serve us so that we can accomplish the mission? And again, I didn't know if it was going to work. Every person you meet and interact with, every engagement will be constructive. Doesn't mean you're not telling, sometimes feedback needs to be clear and
Sure.
but always constructive. Even if even if someone's employment has to be terminated, it can be done with care and with heart. And hey, get you're going to move on to another mission. It's just, this isn't the place for you. You have to be able to have those kinds of be able to come from that place, I think, in order to. I had so much to learn, but I knew that not that I was the best or fun, but I knew that I was real in what I thought about leadership. So that's where it began, and it turned out to be very successful. We grew from it was a retail company. We grew from 100 to 400 stores and surpassed $1 billion in annual sales. And over the course of that time, and it was a journey, and we went through COVID and all of the
Oh,
things.
sure.
I had a great team around me,
Yeah.
was hopefully a part of a great team, and it just proved to me that there that this servant leadership is the heart and soul of what it means to lead authentically with a clear mission focus, building those and developing those relationships with the people around you, and it's you at the bottom looking up at them with an alignment with mission, and it all follows. And if you can't lead with love and with humility, then you're just managing. You're trying to manage. So
Yeah, and kudos to the leadership that agreed to take you on because
yeah,
they had a
it was
they,
a risky move.
but
Betsy call.
it's also a very rational and brilliant move because I would assume, without getting into particulars, I would assume you were competing for that job against folks that had perhaps equal credibility on paper, equal education on paper, but here you come from the Marine Corps. You had all these travels, all these things where you had to pivot and adjust, and someone that was on the hiring committee or whoever made the decision said, this person's going to bring us a unique perspective.
Right.
Nothing to say that there's anything wrong with having all the folks that have the conventional experience, but this is going to be someone that can actually give us a different take and look
Yes.
for some of the some of the things we had to work on from a different angle. So kudos
You
to
know
that.
that where I think I got lucky there. The gentleman that ended up making the decision that I initially reported to, he wasn't prior military, but his older brother was an Army Green Beret staff NCO
There
who
you
he
go.
respected greatly. And so it was enough that it had he just, because I didn't fit in a box, right? But I think he knew sort of a little bit about, I mean, I'm not comparing myself to, our Green Beret, but he knew sort of what was possible. He knew how strong the culture was.
Sure.
He also knew, this company that they were building needed some culture uh, uh, clarified.
Yeah,
And so yeah, no, great point.
that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
very lucky.
Well, that's quite the journey, and I love the success story that followed your time in the service. But I guess now I'm really curious, how did the book come about? How did that project come together?
Right.
And kind of catch us up to speed to what's going on now and how we can kind of track your mission now.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, the key to the book was not just my experience. The key to the book was my friendship, almost lifelong, from third grade on in this tiny little town with my buddy, John Buford. John and I literally grew up together. I think I actually probably spent more time overnight at his house, like through grade school, than I did uh, at my own. We were just close friends. And we ended up, high school, we played high school football together. John went to the day after we graduated from high school, John goes to boot camp in the Marine Corps. And I was kind of, watching his journey. A couple weeks later, I then went off to, to experience the joys of plebe summer at the Naval Academy. And, we were just very close, and we kept in touch over the years. Uh, it would turn out that 4 years later, we both end up back at Quantico, Virginia at the basic school in officer training.
Oh,
John
that's
got
great.
his commission. I got a commission from Annapolis. We're at the basic school in Quantico. John uh, became an infantry officer in the Marine Corps. We stayed in touch over the course of time. In fact, we kind of, we run into one another along the way from time to time. John became uh, really was extremely successful in the Marine Corps, went recon and then force recon, uh, ended up retiring as a lieutenant colonel in the Marines so he stayed the full and actually had a full retirement. I left as a major. John stayed, but over the course of the time, and especially I got out into the civilian world, and he and we'd talk on the phone from time to time. We'd communicate via letter, and but it always came back to leadership. It always came back to sort of, well, what's it like out there? Or what are you seeing? Or that kind of thing. And John ended up he settled in Western North Carolina and got his PhD and took on became a professor at local college in experiential and outdoor education. This is the guy you want in the foxhole with you when it all goes south. He's amazing. Just tremendous respect. And so about 10 years ago, every conversation would come back to, after how are the kids? How's the family? What's it like up in the mountains? And it'd come back to leadership. And finally, I don't know who said it first, but one of us said, hey, maybe we have something to offer here. And maybe it's about the learning. Maybe it's about the becoming of not what is leadership and sort of these are the Marine Corps principles. Just apply them in the civilian world and you'll be fine. This is how you lead. And it was about the becoming process. How do we become? And since we knew we were unique in that we had had a set of experiences and mentors, right? And examples, both good and bad, in leadership that we learned from along the way. And so we were fortunate in our development. And we thought, well, why don't we see if we can write about this thing? And let's put it in an experiential sense. Let's keep it simple, both Marines. So we got out our box of crayons. We both we both had we both had day jobs. I want to remind people, whenever I tell people, it took two Marine officers 10 years to write a book. It's we both had day jobs. But the great thing, right, is a couple of great things. We weren't rushed. We were going to take our time and craft this thing in a way that could help someone. And you and I talked about this earlier. We wanted to write the book we wish we would have had at hand when, when back in high school or back in college or at the
Right.
beginning of our military career, when we were, this is, not the guide and not the only guide, but a guide, a solid guide for a learning journey. And so we took our time. And over the course of that 10 years, lots of trips back and forth, which were excuses to get together and ride bikes into the mountains and but no, they were, we'd sometimes meet in Nashville, kind of halfway between where I live and where he's at. And it was just it's one of the proudest things that I think I have done is what we created together. And 10 years, we found a publisher that selected our manuscript. And by the way, we took it from crayon to actually we had it typed up and all fancy and then we went through the publishing process, and I think about a year ago, it went out there, had the Audible version done, and this thing got published by Greenleaf and hit bestseller status in a couple of categories on Amazon. So super proud. Uh, it is all every we tested ourselves at every word, every you'll probably notice. I think you've read portions of it. There are no footnotes.
Right.
That's a strange thing for a lawyer.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was, I didn't, I gotta say this. Yes, I have enjoyed the book, and I'm gonna highly recommend folks listening to pick up a copy. You have a great line in there in the beginning that you said there's already been so much ink wasted.
Still,
Yeah, spilled. So much ink already spilled on leadership books. This is not going to
right.
be full of fluff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It
Yeah,
is all about,
you didn't waste a sentence. It was very
thank you.
well. Oh, it's fantastic.
Really,
I will say it's a very good field manual
thank you. Good.
for someone who is or is aspiring to be a servant leader. I mean,
Yeah,
it's that simple. They should have
yeah,
this, and
yeah.
yeah, the way it's written is perfect. So please continue. I
Oh,
didn't want to. It's
no, thank you. No, I appreciate it. And that was our goal. We wanted it to be because we love coaching, and I think all leaders do. You loved, right? So you're at the bottom looking up at your teammates in alignment with mission, and you're asking yourself one simple question: what is my best and highest role to serve this person or this team in the direction of our aligned mission? One single question. So, with this servant leader's perspective, one question you're always asking, and what we asked ourselves is, well, what are we trying to accomplish here? Well, we want this to be in the voice and in the tenor, and have a sense of us in the room with whomever comes to this book, right? Somebody who is serious about committing to learning who they are as a leader and what it means to lead. We've got some exercises in there. It's not a workbook, but there are some challenges, hey, some in order to construct this, help them construct their journey. But we really wanted it to be real and practical and kind of like what you said. This is, we used to have a phrase in the Marine Corps: laminate it and take it to the field. It could save your life someday,
right.
right?
Absolutely.
So tried to keep it really, we used small words. Maybe that's a reflection of our own minimal vocabulary, limited. Uh, but we just and you know, it's funny. I talked about and this is for anyone out there who has got a story that you need to write about, and I encourage that and happy to talk to you about that. At some point, you have to give yourself permission. And I remember the conversation where we were kind of, well, how do we know that that's true? And where did you get, we were kind of challenging one another on, sort of, I mean, servant leadership. Okay, who first came up with servant leadership? And you dig back and back and back, and you finally come up with this realization that this idea about what it means to lead as a servant with a mission focus, is as old as civilized society. You can go back to Lao Tse and the Tao Te Ching, 6th century BC,
Mhm.
and there it is. And you just look all the way down. So at some point we said, you know what? I remember us talking about this. Let's make a decision today. This book is going to be different. For whatever value it may have to the reader, this is going to be a combined 80 years of experience between two former Marine officers raised in fatherless families, who, one with a PhD, one with a couple of law degrees, and 30 some years Marine Corps experience, plus all of the civilian experience. This is just going to be our perspective. Now, from time to time, we're going to talk about, hey, here's how the Marines, attack or handle this perspective, or these are some principles that you might want, maybe you can borrow, but those are just touchstones. It's all about this journey. And we finally said, you know what? We are who we are.
Yeah.
If in a combined 80 years of following and leading and learning, this isn't good enough, we can't take our experiences and our convictions, then so be it.
Yeah.
And nobody will buy the book, and it'll just be something we'll be proud of doing. But we sort of gave our permission to put, we think it's sound and useful and
Yeah.
applicable, but
Yeah,
so
and to your point, and for our listeners tuning in, it's not veteran specific. It doesn't matter if
no,
you are trying to lead a business. And let me tell you, I had a background in Wall Street. Those folks could use a lot of servant leaders. So I might be sending a few dozen of some former colleagues, but it doesn't matter if you're leading in an institute, private sector, your church, your family, your community.
yes,
This book touches on leadership as a whole. And frankly, even if you're just trying to lead yourself into a new path, taking the reins and actually understanding the steps that will guide you and help you. And I love I don't want to do any spoilers, but I mean, let's just say I took the instructions as I was reading, and I got out my journal.
nice.
Like you said, it's not a
Yeah,
workbook per se, but there's some really meaningful prompts that
yes,
help the reader formulate a plan and really get if nothing else, get aware of what they're trying to achieve.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's really where it starts, right? If I'm walking around the world and engaging, and my mindset, my perspective is that, hey, it's all about me. Or me and my family, or what my interests, and I'm on my own. And everyone is either, okay, you may be an asset, friend or foe, right? Threat, or you can do something for me. And we're all just bouncing around out here. And I have no leadership responsibilities or no team responsibilities towards the people that I'm bouncing up and interacting with, then guess what? That's a whole different life and perspective from someone who, when it's appropriate, there's not always a we, right? Sometimes I'm whatever. I'm I'm going to drive down my drive or walk down my drive, pick up my mail. Well, that's not a team event. I'm not leading anyone. Uh, I have a single focus, and I either do it successfully or or not, and accomplish the mission. But there are those opportunities, and there are teams that we are on. If and in those situations, and this is one of the things I think you've seen. I certainly saw it in the Marine Corps and in the civilian world. The most highly effective teams are those that are filled with people who are capable of leading. Lead is a verb.
Right.
It's not about title.
Mhm.
It's not about rank. Uh, we all know people who didn't lead or either chose not to lead or hadn't developed their ability to lead who had rank and title,
Mhm.
right? But the more leaders you've got at every level, sometimes leading simultaneously in various ways, and it's a very, right, the best teams, it's a very dynamic situation. You know, you've got mission clarity and you've got not stay in your lane sort of things, but you've got some role responsibilities. But when you've got acts of leadership and initiative and servant, you know, the only uh, type of leadership, and we'll talk about this if we've got time in a second about
Yeah,
what this whole thing
please.
about servant leadership. But you've got acts of leader, you know, I could be leading in one respect over on this side, my teammates leading on the other side, and then I come in and find an opportunity to support or be a good teammate, you know, bring them something that they need while they're leading. I mean, it's just that's those are the teams you want to be on.
Yeah.
And it's not chaos because mission is clear, culture is clear, right? Values are clear. You've set an example. Examples are being set. This is who we are. This is how we're going to treat one another. This is how we're going to engage, right? These are our values. Those are all things that leaders do, both through example and with clarity, right, in their communication.
Yeah.
And when that happens, man, that's when the magic is and I say that not in kind of a oh let's you know it's like let's sprinkle leadership pixie dust on everybody and just hope for magic. You know, it's hard work. It's day-to-day consistent work.
Yeah.
So those are among the convictions that I've confirmed in a variety of organizations and that we want people to get. But if you don't envision yourself or see that, hey, I may have a leadership role here, an opportunity in this moment, or with respect to this project, or at this time, regardless of rank, then you're never going to see the opportunities. They're going to pass you by.
Yeah.
They're just going to go, I'm here for myself. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a private lawyer or I'm a lawyer in a law firm and it's all about my billable hours. I don't give a damn about what's happening over here. I don't have any mentorship or leadership responsibilities. In fact, you guys need to support me while I bring in the big bucks or the big client. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just
they'll miss out on something so fantastic where everybody's locked in and
right.
it's just smooth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's great stuff. I love everything. And I do want to mention one thing I picked up on talking about your transition and you mentioned John's transition.
Yes.
And I love that John was um high ranking in recon and you got out first. So in a sense you were his recon.
You know, that's a great, what a great point. I hadn't, that, I that is so good. That's exactly. Yeah, I was like, it was so funny. I'm like report, you know,
I
Sean,
love
what's it
that.
like
I
out
love
there?
that.
That's so true. Gosh,
He
I
was
hadn't
working you.
thought
You
of
were
it.
the point man scout way out.
I said, yeah, I said, John, here's what I'm seeing, man. And even in corporate America, you know, the people with title and rank and here they're running roughshod or it's too a lot of management, not leadership is.
Yeah.
You know, I remember this one of my favorite stories about corporate America. I was probably out there, maybe I was in the dual role, head of HR and general counsel, and so I'm trying to get to know some of the managers out in the field, and then we had about 100 stores, and you know I couldn't get to everybody, trying to build relationships, and I get this call one day from from one of the managers, and he said, "Sir." And I said, "Yes, who is this?" And he identified himself, and he's at, some store in one of our stores in North Dakota. And he said, "Sir," he said, "I understand you were a Marine, you were a Marine officer." And I said, "Yeah, in a past lifetime." I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, I was, I spent 10 years in the Army, enlisted." And then he got this whispery voice, and he said, "Sir, guess what?" And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Nobody's leading out here." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "Sir, there's no leadership out here." Now that was, his experience. And again, he
Sure.
had the military, and it was sort of like he was telling me that, this deep, dark secret of the reality of what he was observing. And I remember that moment because those of us in the military, we know what it's like when there is, you know, solid, authentic leadership. We know what the absence is like. And to hear that from him, and I thought, okay, that was there's a truth teller, that
Sure.
is and it was just one of those kind of neat moments that I took
Call
as
for
a
higher
note.
air support and reinforcements.
Yeah, exactly. We something's broken out here in the
Yeah,
world.
that's great. And just the fact that because he knew you were a veteran,
Right.
this is what we've all discovered when we get out. It's like you can still have what you're lacking in this, we'll say, civilian life. Well, I always say you can't actually go back to being a civilian. You have to become a veteran. That's a process.
I love
But
that idea.
yeah,
Very
but we
true.
we can
Yeah,
all call another one and share intel.
absolutely. Share. Yeah, I think that's, and we can maybe talk a little bit more about this, but I think finding your tribe out here in the
Oh, for sure,
world is really important.
for sure.
Uh, Go ahead. I hope I'm not moving too slow here.
No, no, you're fine. What else do you want to share with our listeners, as far as how we can? I mean, I know I picked up this book online. Is there a preferred website? Is there a preferred place you like people to go to
You bet.
copy and follow you and John's projects?
Absolutely. So, with respect to the book, yeah, definitely Amazon, and it's available on Audible. Uh, so we were able to land this guy with a great voice who did a fine job bringing that book to life. So if that's your preferred method, you can get it on Audible. Yeah, we do have a website as well, onmissionleaders.com. And that's John and I bringing uh, convictions and also bringing his experiential education background uh, to the leadership journey. Our mission, as again, it's John and I on mission leaders, but is to equip and support, to move leaders who are committed to an intentional leadership journey. That is, that's what moves us. That's what we are about. And the whole idea is to help to develop a community of authentic leaders who are prepared to serve. And I loved what the point you made. And this isn't just about work, right? So leadership isn't like, I'm going to put on my Batman cape and, come busting through or, maybe swing in through the glass in the lobby of the office and come in and stand there and, be all impressive and lead. Leadership isn't something done to another person. It's leadership is a service provided with and for others in the direction of a mission. So you know, but it's and we have the opportunity to serve across the spectrum of our life, at home, at work, in the community. One of the things about veterans that we know is true, it just is. I think it might have been why we went into the military, many of us, but it certainly got refined while we were in. We tend to be mission focused. Somehow that's that thing that really got, is and I think when we are without mission, or we lack a purpose in our life, or our mission is not meaningful, that's when we start getting uncomfortable, maybe unhappy. And so if we can align with a mission that has meaning, and maybe get part of our tribe back and around us, uh, now you've got a fighting chance to for I think a healthy life with meaning. So, we are trying to help people to realize that if you can have that, becoming more authentic in your leading is something that then plays out in the whole rest of your life, plays out at home, it plays out at work, it plays out in every interaction. This mission focused servant leadership perspective, it is powerful and compelling, and it works in the civilian. In fact, I wanted to say this. Some people there's all this discussion in the civilian world as they struggle with what it means to lead, and I get it. But what style are you? Well, I'm a, whatever this style, or I tend to be this style. And now there's uh, Patrick Lencioni, who's written like 5 or 6, very popular management books. He said, or is quoted to have said, uh, "I'm tired of hearing about servant leadership because it's the only kind of leadership there is.
Yeah.
There are no other kinds of leadership. Leading authentically is about leading as a servant. It affects everything you do. Now, it doesn't mean you're not leading from the front when that's your best and highest role. It doesn't mean that you are, I mean, it is all about that. So when you get that clear and you're always like, okay, am I serving myself, or am I serving mission with my teammates? Am I aligned with mission, serving my teammates, or is this really about me? It's kind of about me. Well, then knock it off, you know, get realigned,
Reset. Yeah.
reset, and carry on. But when you get that clear, there are no styles of leadership. There is your unique personality, perspective. I mean, I'm an extrovert. I think if we have to sort of put ourselves in a category, John is an introvert. Uh, we both lead from the same perspective in perhaps different ways. We will engage maybe in different ways, but we're both servant leaders with a strong mission focus. And when it's not about styles, what's my style? No, this is about a clear perspective and a clear set of responsibilities.
Yeah.
So
You
those are
can, yeah, you
some
can
of the
lead.
core points.
Yep. You can lead from the front, but you still eat last.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Exactly.
think back to, entry level basic training, you learn how to run and step, and
Yeah.
you know, the DI, the drill instructor might be in the back yelling at you, might be in the front yelling at you, might be
Yep.
on the side yelling at you, might be in your ear yelling at you.
Yeah.
But no matter where that leader is, you're all still doing the mission. You're all
Yeah.
still running in step. You all
Right.
know your role, so that's, yeah, I
And
love it.
and he is leading, not just he is leading through his example. You're watching him right out of the corner of your eye, and you're like, okay, so that's, boy, I'm gonna have to work on my physical fitness, or look at how he's wearing the uniform, or listen to him talk. I mean, we are influencing one another all the time, and leaders take responsibility for their influence, right? Uh, that's it. And so in any event, yeah, just so we are focused. We developed this team that is we do individual one-on-one coaching. We can do it at a distance through the marvels of technology,
Yep.
Zoom
Yep.
and
Zoom.
Teams. Uh, we can do it on the phone. We can do it face to face. So we do one-on-one coaching. We developed intact teams, and we do training programs. So I also do a fair amount of keynote speaking, uh, only if organizations are serious about their culture. I've turned down gigs when it was clear they just wanted somebody to talk and they weren't going to make the commitment, the culture commitment afterwards.
Yep.
So it's got to be a part of a bigger picture. But yeah, onmissionleaders.com. And again, John Buford and I, and you can reach us via email. Maybe we can throw that into the.
Yeah, I'll have links on the site, folks. If you're listening to this now, it's already on there for you. You'll find the book, the website. If you're out there, I would assume corporate America, schools. I'm not sure who your typical, as far as public speaking events and actual programs. Yeah, if you're listening to this and you understand or you want to learn more about what Sean's discussing, I would highly encourage you to check out the site and look at what they're working on and offering to serve you with.
And if you wouldn't mind, it may be helpful to kind of point people towards the TED Talk.
Oh yes, yeah, I enjoyed that as well. It was that was the first time I saw you actually was in the TED Talk
Gotcha.
online. So I could put a link. Yeah, we'll have a link on there for you as well, folks. So well, this has been a wonderful, wonderful talk. We'll have to do it again and have a little bit of a
Yes.
little update. Anything else in closing? Otherwise, I have one more fun question. But anything else you want to cover?
Yeah. No, maybe next time we can get John.
Oh,
We can
that'd be fantastic. That'd be
get him with
fantastic.
us. Yeah,
All
that'd be
right, so
great.
here's my last final fun
Yes,
question.
sir.
Everybody gets this. So having the life that you've lived now, and I know you have so much ahead of you, obviously, but where you are right now, knowing what you've known, knowing what you've learned, knowing what you and John has discussed, and along with all the other leaders in your lives collectively, if you could have a fun little just 1 minute time travel, and the only place you can go is back to your childhood home right before you decide to go off to the service. And
Wow.
you just have a little moment with your younger self as before joining the service. What would be some guidance or thoughts you want to share with young Sean?
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I think I would talk to him about more clearly having a sense of the journey, the learning journey ahead. Um, just refining that even more. Uh, I would also say to him, and I tried to do this, but there were times when I'd say volunteer for all of the hard things that are outside of your uh, comfort zone
Hmm.
so that you can expand your comfort zone. Um, and to understand that you're about to learn that servant leadership is leadership. But first you have to learn how to follow. So stand by.
Yeah.
You're going to be following for a while.
Oh, that's great. I love it. I absolutely love it, sir. Well, this has been a real joy and pleasure for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And folks, thanks for listening in today. Again, my guest was Marine veteran Sean Georges, and he's the co-author, along with another Marine veteran, John Buford, of the book On Mission. You can pick it up, and if you're struggling to find where, just go to the limacharlieshow.com, find Sean's bio and the recording of this interview, and show him support and see what else you can learn from these two fantastic veterans. Now, in your honor, sir, as we sign off, I have a fun song in the queue. So, ladies and gentlemen, you enjoy this, and I'll talk to you right afterwards. Stand by. Thank you again, Sean. This was great.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Rob.